So welcome to COVID-19 Tough Decision for Business Owners. We're on episode 18 today, and it's how to optimize work performance in the new norm. I am your host for today, and I'm excited to share with you this webinar. So we started this webinar actually about 9 or 10 weeks ago. It's hard to believe, and we've been in Ontario in safety, social distancing since that point in time. And whoever would have ever thought that it would be this long. So today's webinar and our whole series was to really answer a need to help managers and business owners and HR decision makers. We wanted to be able to provide you with information, tips, and strategies to help you through these very tough decisions that you're making daily, weekly, and into the future. If you really like us, do tag us. We're on both Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. And our tagline for Twitter and Instagram is @PeopleBright. And we also have a hashtag for the series, hashtag COVID-19 TDBO for tough decisions for business owners. Let me tell you.
Jump in a little bit there.
Sure.
We're really happy to be partnering with East Glengarry Chamber of Commerce today. So thank you, Lauren, for that opportunity.
Well, thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Hilda, very much for the opportunity to share your expertise with our members. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you for doing that, Jenny. We talked to East Glengarry about the fact that we've been doing these, and they say, well, these topics that you're doing, Hilda, really resonate with my members. So can we just tag on to this and partner together? And I said, yeah, that makes great sense. So thank you very much for being very foresight, Lauren, and doing this opportunity with us.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I am the founder and president of PeopleBright Consulting. We're a full service HR consulting firm. And we also do executive manager and team building training programs. We have a passion in helping businesses create healthy workplaces. A little bit more about myself. I am an award-winning work culture specialist. My husband and I co-founded iTrans Consulting. We were a transportation engineering firm, and we grew it from 2 people to 125 people in 7 offices across Canada. We actually became recognized as one of the best workplaces in Canada, achieving the status of top 10 twice. From our experience of our engineering company, I decided that I really love the HR side. So when we sold the business, I decided to start my own company, PeopleBright Consulting. And through the experiences that we had with iTrans, I created a concept called Connect with Rev Up. And that's where my training and management teams really help build strong work cultures and strong leaders and strong teams. I have over 25 years of experience in HR, and I am a serial entrepreneur. This is my 4th business. I have worked in the areas of healthcare, engineering, professional services, IT, and not-for-profit sector. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about working remotely, both the pros and the cons, and then sharing with you some of the things you really need to include in policies and procedures, and why you need policies and procedures now about working remotely. Then we will talk about ways you can motivate and engage employees who are working remotely, and 5 ways to monitor staff to ensure that they're delivering what you need on time with good quality. Lastly, I want to talk about how to handle difficult conversations, particularly when you are working in a remote situation. So COVID-19 came, and in March, different provinces, different time slots, but pretty much in March, and emergency measures took effect, province by province. And then suddenly, overnight, as I kind of alluded to when we were doing the pre-talk, overnight, people started to work remotely. Some companies thought you would never be able to work remotely. Overnight, they started to work remotely. And so everybody was making do and trying their best to make things happen. So some concepts that you would think that people would think about in terms of the pros and cons of working remotely, I will just highlight them briefly, but since I give you these slides, these will give you some reminders of tips that you need to think about. So some of the pros is that productivity and flexibility, the hours that people can work, that the fact that they're not distracted by their coworkers. There's this perceived and actual increase in retention rates. 70%, 76% of workers would be more willing to stay if their current employers could give flexible hours. And this was a study done in 2019. There's a healthier lifestyle because people can have work-life balance. And to do that, you need to make sure you take the time that you would have been commuting and not working on the computer, but doing something healthy for yourself. And it can be stress relieving to work there. Time and cost efficiencies and reduced overhead. Now people are saying if we do more remote working, we could save money because we don't need as much rent or much space. Employee satisfaction has also been seen as a pro for remote work. So what are the concerns and cons? Well, the idea that productivity could be lessened because people are distracted at home. They may not focus quite as frequently, or they may not focus and concentrate as well as they do if they were working in the office. There's the concept of cybersecurity. When you have an office location, that can be a safe spot, but when everybody is doing their own thing from home remotely, that increases the concern about cybersecurity. Social isolation, because people are working from home, there is that concept of social isolation. And then there's the cost. Some people don't have laptops at home, and maybe people needed to buy that. And then the key factor for most managers, the most pressing one, is the dependence on supervision. How will I adequately supervise somebody when they're working remotely? And that's one of the key things that we want to talk about today. So a couple of weeks ago, depending on what province you were in, there was the call to reopen or actually reopen. The provinces of Quebec and Ontario and BC are in those stages of opening, and Quebec is further ahead than all of us because they started as early as May the 4th. When you were making working remotely from home happen, that was because you needed to do that. So a lot of people scrambled and they created stuff, but a lot of people didn't stop to formalize the process. So it really is time now, if you're going back to business as unusual, then it's time to really think about, do you have the proper policies in place to work remotely? And have you into your organization, have you included remote working as a formal way of doing business? So what might that new norm be? And this is a study done by Robert Half. They surveyed some employees, and this is what the employee said. So again, this is a slide for you to look at, but families, parents feel more compelled to ask to work at home because it's a good option. And I'll just zero in on the bullet point, returning to the office, the new norms. So top measure workers want in their companies as a result of the COVID-19 is 85% want to be allowed to work from home more frequently. And I think as you listen and talk to people, they're talking really about the fact that it would be nice to have a balance. Some people really like the idea of working remotely at home regularly, and some people don't want to do that at all. But a lot of people, I think the majority, would say, it'd be nice to have that option and to do it maybe a couple of times a week to be able to work from home. So this is what people would like from their companies. Just want to make sure I didn't skip a slide. So working remotely, is it right for your organization? And that's probably the one key thing you need to think about. Can we, now that we can return to business as unusual, can we continue to work remotely, partly or fully? And I know that Shopify has declared that they will now permanently close shop and have their staff work virtually. And they've declared that. Other companies are saying that they will not be resuming working in the office until well into 2021. So that's a key decision that you and your organization need to make. So as I said earlier, if that is what's going to happen, it's time now to formalize that. And when you think about work home policy, some people will automatically go to Google and template something. What I challenge you to do, though, is if you take a template, do customize it to your organization and work culture. Don't just, plop it in and just put in insert name, insert name, insert name. Really think about how that's going to apply. So I want to highlight 4 areas that you need to think about when you're doing a work from home policy. You can call it remote working, or you can call it work from home, or something that you feel resonates with your culture. In there, you really need to address communication. And I want you to think about remote working for you and put into the chat box, are we going to work remotely? And just put yes or just comment. So I want to get a sense of how many people are contemplating working from home or have said yes. And if you know percentage, will it be hybrid? So Jenny, make that into a one question rather than the many questions that I put together. So as you're dealing with this remote from work policy, think about communication. What are you expecting from your staff in terms of communication? What form will it take? Will it be emails? Will you use Slack? Will you buy something that you need to do it? But you need to identify what those forms of communication are. And what is the expectation with relationship to your manager? You may not put that in a policy, but you should make sure that your team, if you're the manager, have a clear understanding of what your expectations are, what time of day you want to have that communication. Maybe you want team meetings every morning or at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to catch up with people. What are your expectations with communicating with clients? And put those down in writing. And then if there are written communications, what those expectations are, include in their timelines, so that if you're writing to a client, you can share with them that we will respond to you within 1 business day. And if you as a manager have expectations of the staff, clearly communicate when you expect to have that person respond back to you, because that will really help. The second thing is just general operations from a business perspective for your employees. So what hours of work do you expect them to be, and how flexible and fluid is that? What is the response time, as I mentioned, and the dress code? I noticed one company, they're always really nicely dressed. And what they say is, yes, at our company, we need to dress well. Now, of course, if it's remote working, you can dress from the top up really nice, and you can wear your nice stretchy pants and comfy below, but business casual or business proper on the top. It was kind of funny. My husband wore a dress shirt one day. I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Oh, we have a meeting with a client. We're doing a proposal presentation." So from the top up, he had a dress shirt on, and from the bottom, he had his sweatpants. Dedicated workspace. Some employees will actually be working from their bed or their comfy sofa. This is not good ergonomically, and it probably, if you're having a remote Zoom with a client, people don't want to see, you sitting on the bed as you're typing away. So do set those expectations and share that in your work policy. The third concept is just the whole idea of working remotely. You may require people to work remotely. That's one thing, but you may also keep it as an option. And if you do, then have an application process, make it an approval process so that people understand what it is that they will be required to do and how do they apply it and who makes that decision. So you may need to also set up in the policy criteria for the different roles for working remotely. So something that is general enough to indicate that there is some form of application if it's needed. The third thing, when my husband and I had our company, we actually were asked for working remotely. And we had a lot of young engineers who didn't really have much experience. So we thought that they needed supervision. So they were not allowed to work remotely at home until they gained experience to be able to do it on their own. Whereas our managers, we allowed them to work up to 2 days at home. But we also shared that this was a privilege. And if they abuse the privilege, then it would be taken away from them. So that's what I mean by the last point is it's a privilege. If it's abused, it can be removed. And we put that in our policy. We said, exactly, this is the criteria for working at home. You must be available for our clients between 10 and 3 o'clock. You know, you worked your regular hours, but this was the core hours that the clients needed to be satisfied. So the minute they weren't, this was a concern that could revoke your privilege of working remotely from home. So think about that. If you need to do that, then put it in your policy. And the last thing in your policy should be including other items that are reflective of what it means for the workers. That means if you need to address IT and the support that's needed, identify the hours that support will be provided for them. Because if they're working late at night and they expect their computer that went down to be fixed, perhaps your IT department or people do not work 24 hours, so they have to wait till next business day. If they have teaching them about the concern of a spam and you don't want to get attacked, so teaching people cybersecurity, so something in your policy needs to be reflected on that. If you need to onboard people on work from home policies or working from home, you need to put something in the policy with regards to that. And then if you are planning to have project management tools, because that is a form of communication, if you want to use something like Trello or Asana, or even if you're communicating and you're saying you're going to use Slack or WhatsApp, then share that in the work from home policy. One of the things we have at People Bright Consulting is an HR overview assessment tool. When we talk to our potential clients and our clients, we start with giving them an overall view of your assessment. An overall view of assessing what the status of your organization is. And that will include, do you have a mission, vision, and values? Do you have recruiting and onboarding? What about your performance evaluations tools? And what about your policies and procedures? And I share that with you because as you're building your policy for remote work, you need to incorporate these concepts in there. And I usually do a session on mission, vision, and values because it's important to have that strong mission, vision, and values as your foundation, because everything is built on that. So your policies and procedures should reflect your mission, vision, and values. The way you hire and who you hire should also be a reflection of that, as well as the type of clients you want should be in sync with where you want to go and the kinds of clients you have based again on this mission, vision, and values. So I'm going to share with you that we will give you the tool later on if you are interested. How many people have done an assessment of their company to see whether they're performing well in terms of all the HR needs that they have? Again, go ahead and put that in the chat line. Jenny, in terms of the first question I asked, do you want to just give us a summary? Did people type in anything?
Yeah, so I think quite a few people did.
Yay, participation. It's always good.
Yeah. So the summary is people are working flexibly, a couple of days a week, 40 to 50%. I think a lot of people are just doing a hybrid system moving forward.
Okay, cool. So how do you keep people motivated and engaged when they're working remotely? And I would encourage you to put in the chat line some of the things that you think are working for your organization right now. So go ahead and put that question in, and then I'll go to the next slide. One of the things we found successful at iTrans was really supporting people and making them feel important. And I think that's how we became successful. We wanted to give people work that was meaningful, as well as provide them with a culture where people really felt connected to each other, they supported each other, and they really, really felt proud to be an employee of iTrans. And they didn't call themselves employees, they really felt they belonged, and they really used to love to share their company. So wouldn't you like to work at a company, and this may be what you have already, where people really feel so proud to be a part of your company, you know, and they wear the name of your company with pride. That's the ultimate goal, is to create an organization like that, because if you do, then people are almost like owners. They take pride in it. They want to make sure it succeeds. And a lot of business owners I talk to sometimes say, oh, I wish I had 20 more of me. Imagine what I could do. Well, if you can create a positive work culture, you could do that. You could have 20 mini yous. So when I sold the business, I thought, how do I replicate what we had? And that's why I started my company. I wanted to be able to help other companies build a company that really felt good, that you were proud of, and that you'd go to work every day, whether you're an employee or the business owner, and you felt that you'd created something and you're part of something that's really doing good in society. So when I sold the business, I thought, what can I do? So I created this concept called Rev Up. And the approach that I came up with, it was an acronym for the qualities that we had at iTrans. And so Rev Up is actually an acronym, but it has a nice catchy kind of thing to it. Rev Up! You know, you can imagine people just getting energized. So what does Rev Up stand for? Rev Up stands for respect, equality, valued, as in I value you, uniqueness, and potential. So what does that mean? Well, if you respect people, respect is going to build trust. And that's the goal that you as a manager, you as a team member need to do. Build trust in your organization, build trust in your team. Treat people as equals by having open and honest communication skills, and treat the roles as important. And I think the single thing that COVID has taught us is that roles are important, and the frontline workers now are so treated as equals, and they're valued. You know, how many times do you see vignettes on TV where people are banging their pots and pans? That banging at 3 o'clock in the afternoon is a sign of respect for our frontline workers. So those three qualities, respect, equality, and valued, really make people feel connected to their organization. And you as managers, as HR decision makers, can really make the difference to that. The fourth word is uniqueness. Each one of us is unique in our own ways. We have stories about us as professionals, as individuals, as family members, and all of those experiences and stories we share with each other really is part of who we are. So I like to think that each one of us is unique. And based on that uniqueness, you want to build on those strengths, not on their weaknesses, but build and tap into that uniqueness. And imagine what you can do if you use that potential. So oftentimes at iTrans, we would talk to our staff. We had a great mentoring program, and we would hear what their passion was, their interest, and what they were really good at. And we tapped into that potential and nurtured that to promote them in helping the organization do what we do, but also tapping into their strengths. So imagine what could happen if you as a business owner, manager, or a staff member adopted a concept of Connect with Rev Up, recognizing that each one of us has something to offer. And what I want to do is I want to share with you a couple of other things. Oh, there. Okay. Before I share with you how the Rev Up can tie into difficult conversations. We talked about monitoring people. I think this is one of the key concerns that people have, is how do I continue to monitor people during remote work. And it starts with what I just shared. You need to build a trusting environment. And if you adopt a Rev Up approach, people will trust you. You will trust them. And I think that's the key. Sometimes managers who are needing to feel a sense of control, partly because of the huge responsibility they have, don't often give that perception of trust. And then it makes their work harder. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You don't trust them, so they don't perform for you. But it's about communicating effectively and building trust. I think as a manager, you can establish routines to keep an eye on things and see how they're going. Because if you see signs that things are not working, those routines, such as a morning meeting, will help you see that things are not happening. Another one is establishing ground rules and expectations. So what are the do's and don'ts of emails, as I mentioned earlier in the policy? What about video conferencing and dress codes? Here too is an opportunity for you as a manager to establish your expectations and communication with your team as a whole and your individuals one-on-one. And that gets me to the fourth point, is monitoring performance and deliverables. Rather than micromanaging to make sure they do every detail, look for more milestones as deadlines. Now, I don't mean milestones 3 months from now, but what is the deliverable for this week? What do you expect to happen? When they don't happen, when the outcome doesn't happen, that's when you have that discussion on deadlines or quality. Don't kind of build it up, but do have that dialogue. It's really about healthy work performance relationships. And then if you have concerns, address those performance concerns quickly, but respectfully and in a neutral tone. So this next slide I want to share with you is how to have tips and strategies for difficult conversations. But before I do that, do you want to respond to that last question, Jenny, that we asked? Was there any comments on that?
Like the engagement methods?
Yeah.
A few of people said they have virtual fun lunches and meetups. And then they had morning meetings to align like company priorities for the day. And then they also chat with every employee who works at home like every once a day.
Good. And I think the next question, as I deal with a difficult conversation, what have been some of the kind of concerns that people have had about remote work that they would that they wish they could resolve, or it's just a little bit of a stress point that's part of doing business? So put those in the chat box. And if you have any questions, we're coming up to the question and answer period shortly, so start putting those in the chat line too. Okay. So from time to time, you're going to have these difficult conversations. I've actually done some of my webinars have focused on difficult conversations. I'm going to focus in on the difficult conversations that you might have working remotely. So my tips and strategies for you really align with this Rev Up process. So the Rev Up process can look at a person's career progression, but it can even be taken down to the day-to-day activities that you have. So number one, you start from a place of neutrality. If you have a concern about somebody's deliverables, don't say, you know, I'm really concerned that you're not doing your part for the business. You've been late and it's just not acceptable. Like that you've already made that judgment of how you're going to do that. So instead, you should start with a place of neutrality and say, hi, I've noticed that a couple of deadlines have actually been missed. I had to remind you about finishing that on Friday, and I hadn't heard from you. And I also noticed that a couple of times you've been really late for the Zoom calls. Can you kind of share with what's happening? So you're just stating fact, and then you're asking for the follow-up. Then the second point is really listen. Once you've stated that question in a very neutral, respectful tone, then listen. because you don't know what's going on. Remember, I said people are unique, they have different stories. Listen. And then when you think you know the answer, because I think oftentimes when we're talking, we think, oh, what will I say? What will I say? You're not listening. Just listen and assess, but don't say anything. Don't think you have to say anything. Then when you think you've listened enough, just make sure you listen some more, because I think too often we're quick to step in there and make a comment. And as you listen, people feel valued. Oh, they want to know exactly how I feel, what's being said. Then look for that uniqueness of the situation and individual. Have that dialogue to say, oh, so if we're using an example of somebody who wants to return from work but doesn't want to come in regularly because they have family, you want to hear that story. So let's see what we can do to work out something that will allow you some more family time, but really meet the needs of the company. So you're almost trying to be like the devil's advocate for both sides and have that conversation. So when you work to resolve that situation and look at the potential to create a winning situation, imagine what that does to strengthen the trust relationship you have with that person. So again, work towards a strong and revved up kind of working relationship, because that really will help. I don't have a lot of time to give you examples or details, but I wanted to share with you some highlights to get you thinking about what I'm sharing with you and how that's going to resonate and impact on your personal and professional workspace. So just in summary, before we open it up for questions, working remotely is here to stay. You need to determine if it's right for you and what will happen. According to some of our chat box, it is hybrid likely for most organizations. Now that we're returning to work in a new norm, and I'm talking about non-essential organizations, because obviously the essential ones have been already at work, then think about developing policies and procedures for working remotely at work. Look at opportunities on how to continue to motivate. I love the idea of fun places. I think one organization had people doing, like yoga exercises. Now, obviously this was a large organization, but once they did it remotely, they actually had continued with the same time slot, but doing it remotely. So think of ways to have that connectivity, and that's really important, and love some of the ideas that came through. Monitor quality of work and project deliverables. If I can state anything, is don't micromanage. Look at your style and think about, how can I create a trusting relationship, manage people remotely by being respectful, looking at the deliverables, and when the deliverables don't happen, have that dialogue. Keep it light, but when you have to escalate it, you will. So the last point is how to handle those conversations on work performance issues. Always start from a neutral tone, stating facts, being respectful, listening, and then create winning solutions. Now, sometimes that's not going to happen. Obviously, if a person has performance issues, there has to be a little bit more expectation that they have to do certain things, but there's no reason why that you shouldn't have something that creates a win-win situation. And certainly if you're interested, I can help you with those more serious discipline approaches, but this formula that I shared with you can work in those situations as well. So at PeopleBright, we can actually help you, and I do encourage people to have a free 30-minute strategy call with me, whether it's developing a remote work policy or looking at business strategy, mastering those difficult conversations, or just generally talking about your company from an HR perspective. For those people that are actually interested in signing up for a free 30-minute call, I will send you the bonus HR assessment tool to give you a check on the pulse of your organization. I'm going to open it up for questions now, but I wanted to share with you a list of the webinars that we have actually done since we started COVID-19 Tough Decision for Business Owners. So we have topics on difficult conversations, business survival, knowing your legal rights, financial aspects of the business. So these are just some of the list of things. I'm going to open it up for questions right now. Are there any? Can you summarize the last chat that I shared with people, Jenny?
Great. So for your last question on difficult conversations, some people, like Matthew mentioned, he can't provide detailed instructions on a real-time basis. Anna was worried that like people working from different hours would send in emails coming in at all hours. So it was like that type of time management was a little bit difficult. And then Matthew also mentioned that he has multiple employees, so he doesn't always have the time to follow up with each of them, like due to his own workload.
Yeah, okay.
Last but not least, Annie also wondered if she does need a work from home approval policy for anyone who works from home, even if it's just 1 day a week.
You should have some policy, even for 1 day a week, because what if they don't live up to those expectations? What if they come up with some idea that you hadn't thought about? You would have to describe what that is and then kind of make a policy on the fly, if you know what I mean. So it's better that you take a proactive approach and figure out what should be in a policy. When we created the one we had for iTrans, it was probably just a page and a half long. It talked about the expectation, because you can have, you have policy and then you have unique situations. But I think there should be some elements to it, Annie, and I'd be happy to kind of look at what you've done already or what some of those key points should be. I'm going to share this upcoming webinars with you, and then I'm going to answer Matthew's questions, because I think you are very typical about many of us who are business owners who have emails coming in at all hours of the night. So I'll address that. Just want to share with you some upcoming webinars that I have. The next one will be next Wednesday, how to build strong work culture remotely. So then we'll do a little bit deeper discussion on the actual motivating people and some of the tips and strategies that will help you be successful in that way. We're going to talk about why business should recruit during COVID-19. A lot of people thinking, no, I need to not. But maybe you need to have critical hires that will help grow your business during this very difficult times. And I've lined up Kim DeShane, who is a guru in terms of mental wellness, and she's going to focus on mindfulness, really cost-effective and inexpensive way to manage the stressful situation that we have now as we are in COVID-19. If you've heard me talk before, number 2 disability or illness for 2020 will be depression. That's behind heart attacks. So the situation we find ourselves with this pandemic has created a lot of stresses. And if you look at other countries, starting with China and then going into Europe, mental health has become a real big concern post-COVID acute phase. So I'm going to stop my sharing now so I can see the chat line, and I want to start by talking about Matthew's concerns. So Matthew, I think what I hear you say is that your staff are emailing you at all hours. They're asking you things and you don't have enough time to respond. And when you want to share with people what they need to do, it's so hard to write everything down. So definitely communication is really important. And what you can do, sometimes, are you having meetings with the staff and say, here's the things I need you to do? And then you think you need to write it down afterwards because they're not kind of following what you're doing? Is that what I'm hearing, Matthew?
No, the issue is that I have a Monday morning meeting, and then we assign different projects, different people work together on one particular project. But after a couple of days, nothing happened. But in some cases, they're waiting for my response. Well, there's 1,500 emails on my screen, and my attention on different issues might be jumping from one to the other. So if we were in the same office, and I wouldn't have a problem to walk over and say, hey, so and so, and what is happening this, and what should I do? What should you do? So that kind of spontaneous interaction has been taken away because half of my staff is working at home, half of them are with me. So the people with me, I have no problem to interact and get things moving. So my frustration is that sometimes I don't know what is the other people are actually working.
Yeah.
That's my challenge.
So one thing I'm hearing, and a simple possible solution, is that they would give you a summary every day that just, I would appreciate, explain and create the relationship as part of me kind of making sure everything is running smoothly. I would appreciate a summary from people at the end of, whether it's the day or every other day. And then if there are key deliverables, also share the expectation with that. So then you can feel whether the project is running smoothly or it's going to be heading south. Because, I know that if they're not doing what they should be doing, the productivity is directed in the wrong way, and you may have rework, is what I'm.
But Hinda, the problem is that I try not to cross the line of micromanagement.
Yes, no, I hear you.
And if you keep asking for a daily timesheet and all those things, and it's quite intrusive, okay? And part of a small business owner is that we encourage a culture that is self-motivated and get things done. So I do not want to impose a very restrictive method to kill the creativity, and that is my mental challenges.
And I think you are definitely not alone. So thank you for sharing that. Definitely. And I think you should be signing up for the 30-minute consultation, which we're happy to do. But I think it's true. As a manager, you need to balance that. How do I allow my staff to feel the freedom of doing what they need to do, and be also making sure that they have the outcome? So that is part of building that strong working relationship, saying, okay, how do we make sure we communicate effectively? What's going to work for you is not going to work for somebody else, right? So if you're saying, I would have that healthy, respectful discussion, that Rev Up discussion with your staff members who are 2-3 days later, I don't know what the hell they're doing. So have that healthy relationship. Say, I want to work together, but sometimes I feel that I haven't heard from you and I'm worried about deadlines. How do we make sure that you communicate with me so I know that you're staying on top of things? And how do I communicate with you to make sure that the work is? So how do you create that win-win situation of that relationship? Because I think it's about building relationships, about making sure that you get the information you need and they also get the information they need. And that may be respectful. Say, any emails, here's a tip: send it to me at 8 in the morning. Even if it's 2:30 at night, send it so that I don't see it at 2:30 at night. Right? So the little tips. So let's have a conversation afterwards.
Sure. Yeah,
that would really be helpful.
Yeah. By the way, I'm still using a WhatsApp or WeChat group to communicate with my team members. So the gentleman from Lauren recommended it. It is one of the quick way that very fermented information are being shared instantly amongst the group, so everybody knows exactly what's happening. So those things are good, okay, but
Yeah, but there's too many of them because they're spontaneously. Like, I belong to a group, and last night there was 6 emails during dinner saying, yes, I'll see you later. Yes, I'll see you later. And it kept going ping, ping, ping. And my husband said, what is that? I said, sorry, it's people saying they're going to be seeing me in 20 minutes. So yeah, it does have its limitations. Any other things, Jenny, that I've missed in terms of questions? Some really good tips here. I like Anne's tips about coffee breaks and stretch breaks. It's really important to have stretch breaks. I'm suffering a little bit from sitting too long. My glutes are a little tight because we just need to make sure we take breaks and to stretch in all the right places. Any other things? Does anybody want to come online? Did I miss any messages? Well, I can't see all the messages now. They're way a lot. But Jenny, do you have any summary for me?
Well, Anna just gave a very good comment about having a Zoom ergonomic assessment. That's a good idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Okay, I'm actually chiming in if that's okay. So,
Go, yes, please.
yeah.
I love
So
your avatar, by the way.
oh yeah, thank you. It doesn't look like me, but it was the closest thing I could find. Anyway, so yeah, so we do a Zoom ergonomics. So we take pictures of where we predominantly work from, and we send that in. We have an ergonomic specialist, and he would guide us. And we also have mandatory e-learning about ergonomic assessments. So you should be sitting this way and that way, and your keyboard should look like this, or your laptop should look like that, and yeah, and we've also mandated really 8 to 9 is protected time. Over the lunch is protected, and we offer all kinds of exercise programs. And then the 2 stretch breaks throughout the day, and then protected time from 4 to 5. And then that coffee break I was talking about, it's just casual. It's not talking about work. It's about anything you want to talk about. And we even break out into different rooms with people so they could talk about whatever they want. We only do it like once every 2 weeks, but we felt that that was enough. Then we also do updates on COVID-19 and how that's affecting us as remote workers or people working from offices, etc. What else can I tell you? Yeah, I don't know. I think we're doing really, really well. And I'm really enjoying working from home. Sorry.
Your ideas are great. Great. How big is your organization? When you have an ergonomic assessment person, that's amazing.
Yeah, so you know what? I'm not self-employed. I work for a very large pharmaceutical company, so maybe that kind of explains it all. Yeah, I'm not self-employed, but I love joining your groups because it gives me lots of ideas to think about.
I think that's the important thing, is that you gain information by checking in on different people's Zoom topics, and then you gain information from each other. I sit on a lot of HR chats, and so I get the collective wisdom of my colleagues and what they're doing, and and vice versa. I share tidbits that I've learned both from my own experiences and from talking to my clients. So it's great. It's great. Yeah. Well, I'm respectful of people's time. We're about 5 minutes over, but I really appreciate that people shared some of their tips and strategies, because collectively we learn, and that sometimes gives you that spark to say, hey, that's a great idea. You know, I think that's going to work for our company. And so that's good. I would encourage any of you really to take advantage of, you know, connecting with me. That 30 minutes can be a dialogue that's targeted towards what your needs are for your company during COVID-19. And I have years of experience in human resources. I stay connected with my colleagues, so I kind of know what's going on in COVID times, and certainly can help you with those difficult decisions. And those people that do sign up for that 30-minute consultation will get my free HR assessment. And if you squeeze my arm, or a lot, if you send an email to Jenny, I'm sure she'd be happy to send you the HR assessment tool to really give you an idea of whether you're on the right track with COVID-19 and just with your company in general. So I appreciate everybody being on. I'd like to give a big thank you again to East Gwillimbury for partnering with us. I hope that means more people from the East Gwillimbury area will sign up and see the advantage of joining and listening to some of the topics that we are sharing with our colleagues out there running businesses and trying to succeed. So
yes,
thank you
Hilda, very much. It was a great session, and I found it very valuable even for myself, and we're going to continue to promote all of your sessions out to our members moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.